Hi, everybody. Dan here. I'd like you to be sure to review the PowerPoint on persuasive presentations from the publisher. Now, let me put it in perspective. With all of these PowerPoints from the publisher, there is good and there is bad. What is the good? Well, they have good information and good advice. For example, your persuasive presentation must be evidence-based. There must be a logical argument that leads the audience to the same rational conclusion that you have. Good advice. Now, the bad is that these PowerPoints are horrible visually. All of them, really, from week one up to now. There's way too information crammed into each slide. That's why I wanted you to, and still want you to, abide by David Phillips' advice on how to create a PowerPoint, even if you disagree with him. Let's do it one more time. These PowerPoints are absolutely incomprehensible from the viewpoint of the audience. So take the good and leave the bad. Now, let's talk about your upcoming presentation, which is really right around the corner on week 10. Remember, you're going to turn in this week, you're going to turn in your PowerPoint and your outline. That's part of the assignment. And next week, you'll be doing your final, most important, and longest presentation. All right. I think a lot of students are uncomfortable with taking a side and arguing passionately for that side. Because really, when you take a stand, you have to be willing to stand there and take it. In other words, you open yourself to criticism. There will be people who disagree with you. A lot of people are uncomfortable with having people disagree with them. Also, we've been taught that there is no truth, that there's only the middle ground, and that everybody is entitled to have their opinion, and we have to be fair-minded. And we've seen that people, for example, in political debates, or maybe in your own classroom experiences, you've seen that people who stand up for something are often ridiculed. And we don't want to be that person. But we have to, in this presentation, we have to take a stand. Not only that, we have to convince our audience to stand with us. So it may be doubly uncomfortable for you, as if there wasn't enough anxiety in public speaking. We're adding more. And this is why this presentation is held back until the final week. Now, there is a secret to delivering a persuasive presentation, and that is to really get familiar with your material and to brainstorm all the possible arguments against it, and to receive these arguments in your head in a fair-minded way, so that when you have thought everything through, you believe not only in your head, but in your heart, in your message. And you're ready to discuss all aspects of your proposal. Be honest with me. If you're giving a presentation at work, and then at the very end of it, you say, are there any questions? Are you hoping hands are going to be raised? Probably not, because maybe you haven't thought everything through, or you don't want to see people witness you stumbling over your attempt to answer a question because now you have no script. So it's very important to think it through and know your material to the bone. And you will find that if you know it to the bone and you've examined all of the arguments against it you can think of, that you will have an intellectual curiosity when people raise their hands, during the Q&A period. And you'll be wanting to hear something that maybe you haven't heard before. That's the beauty of really, really thoroughly going through your material and the arguments. Okay. Remember, this is not a laid-back presentation. It's a persuasive presentation. You have to have energy. You've got to show that you believe in your message and why you believe in your message. And that's where the logical approach and evidence-based arguments come into play. Now, I'm not saying you have to rant and rave. You don't. You can be very pleasant. You can smile, but you are trying to convince your audience in the rightness of your proposal. So there should be no doubt where you stand. Believe me, if your audience senses that you don't believe, they will not believe either. Show your logic. Show the reasons why you believe. Your audience has to be persuaded, not browbeaten. You have to present a clear, logical argument in order to bring them on board. And you have to lead to a conclusion that would seem reasonable to every rational listener in your audience. You're trying to bring them to that same conclusion. So be confident, be logical, and be persuasive. Finally, be sure to follow the rubric. The rubric asks you to explain the purpose of your presentation. Don't forget to do that. The rubric asks you to lay out your agenda and overview of the points that are going to be covered. Make your argument rational and with a call to action. Now, this is another thing that makes some people feel uncomfortable. The call to action. Why? Because maybe we're afraid that no one will jump on the bandwagon with us, because you put yourself at risk when you say essentially to your audience, please join me, or you ask for a show of hands for those who are with you. It's risky because maybe no hands will go up. But I'm asking you to take that risk. Reach out to your audience and ask them to join you in your efforts. Remember, no embedded videos. We want to hear you and only you. And go for 14 minutes. The main thing is you've got to convince me and your classmates to take action. All right. I'll see you on the next screencast. Thanks. Bye.